about the biological aspects of COVID-19 and what kind of data we need and what kind of technological interventions are required to address specifically COVID-19. And also, I will talk about where we are, what kind of data we have already, and where we are lacking, and what kind of technological innovations are under preparation or under development, and what more we need to do. So mostly it will be focused on the biological aspect of the COVID-19. So I will begin with So I'll begin with the two important aspects of COVID-19. So as every pandemic has a two aspect, like mortality and the immunity. So COVID-19 also has a two important aspect, mortality and immunity. And due to the high prediction of the mortality, Government of India announced the lockdown, and we then started all the preventive measures, and then we started the diagnostic, and we started building our healthcare capacities, and further. I request you all to please mute your mic. Yeah, thank you very much. And then we started looking into the development of the vaccine and the therapy. So for this, we have now a lot of data about the cases, number of cases, which area, as already mentioned by respected ED sir in his introductory lecture. So all this helps us to make a policy measures. And
I request participant to please their mics.
yeah, thank you. And to devise our disaster management policy, and to also to make new policies to address this issue. So here we have a lot of data. Yeah, already we have a lot of data, and every day it's emerging, which is helping the government to devise these measures more effectively. But what exactly 1 month before I have mentioned that what we are lacking about the data about the immunity part, because as the patient get infected and they are getting recovered, so they develop some kind of immunity against the disease. So here we are lacking now. After 1 month, I'm in a position to say that at least some part of some studies are now being initiated, and hopefully we will have some data. So for this immunity study, we need to do some kind of antibody testing, where we will try to find out what is the level of antibodies present in the patients who have recovered from this disease, and this will exactly help us to know the prevalence of COVID-19, because there will be many such cases. Hello.
Yes, sir. You can go.
Oh, okay. Because there was some disturbance in between, so I thought I got disconnected. Yeah. So we have to do some kind of antibody testing to really determine the level of antibodies present in the patient who have recovered from the disease, and this will tell us the exact prevalence of COVID-19. Because now we may miss some patients who have not been diagnosed, but it could happen that these person or these patient would have got infected, and they could have recovered without knowingly, because as we know, there are many asymptomatic cases in all over the world. And secondly, what's the most important data that we need from this study is to determine the longevity of the immunity, that how long this immunity is going to be there. This is really very important, because unless and until we know this, we will be not in a situation to determine or to know whether the disease will reappear or the re-emergence. Even WHO has come out and speak about this, and have told to the entire world that we don't have so much data about this, and we don't know about the longevity of the immunity. So we need to do some kind of study here, and we need to pursue this study to understand what is the longevity. So this will help us to address the problem of re-emergence, and also this will help us to know what kind of vaccination frequency we will know. Because if we know that the longevity is short, then maybe we will require frequent vaccination when the vaccine will be developed. So this all data will have. Hello. Yeah.
Sir, we are unable to see your presentation. I think there is some issue. So your presentation is not.
I request participant to mute their mic, please.
I think something happened in between. Yeah. If everybody will.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's visible now.
I think in between somebody started his desktop or his screen, shared his screen. So please.
All participants requested not to share their screen. Keep their mics mute. Okay?
Otherwise, I will not come to know that it had happened. Yeah. Thank you, sir. So now is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. So I already have talked about the immunity part of this aspect of the COVID-19. I will move ahead. Yeah. So we need data, much data here, and and this data will help us to really define the ways ahead. Yeah, and we come to know that what kind of innovations we do, and this will all combine will help us to lead the way forward, and it will help to come out of this lockdown, and also what kind of life ahead will be, and what kind of technological interventions or support we need to continue our life. So let's continue with this, and here I have presented a schematic representation of COVID-19. So in this scheme, we will try to understand where and what kind of technological interventions we need, and the main objective is to devise a technological driven identification, treatment, as well as serological surveillance and development of early warning system, a kind of warning system to address a potential problem of re-emergence in terms of COVID. So in this, I will talk about this in detail during my presentation for next 20 to 30 minutes. I think the moderator can switch off all the mics. I think the moderator can do it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please. Yeah. So in this scheme, so first of all, we have to what we are facing a problem is to identify the suspect. Yeah, because now in India we are facing a problem that the disease is still spreading. Yeah, so there is something happening that there are some suspects which are being leaked or which are not being identified, which lead to the spread of the disease. So what I mean by this suspect and what leaks suspect is suppose there is a representative pool of population and there are some suspects. Yeah, so here we will have two kind of situations maybe. So maybe some suspects are diagnosed, and if they are diagnosed and suppose they are asymptomatic, and so what we can do that first we can do the contact tracing of all these of the person that have come into contact with this asymptomatic suspect, and here we can break the chain. But it may happen because still we don't have that kind of electronic surveillance system, and it's still emerging. Yeah, and we may miss to track some of the patients, some of the person who have come into contact with this suspect, and they may be leaked one, and they may lead to the spread of the disease unknowingly. So this will be our first target. Yeah, so we should develop a foolproof technique where we can really target or we can identify the suspect, all the suspects which have been come into contact with the person. And secondly, the situation may be that we have missed completely to diagnose them, or maybe they are the people who have before diagnosis. Yeah, and if suppose they are also asymptomatic, because why I'm emphasizing on asymptomatic, because symptomatic person will be treated and taken care of, but because the mostly around 80 to 90% people are asymptomatic, and because of that the problem is aggravating. Yeah, so here if we don't do any kind of diagnosis, then definitely there will be so many people that come into contact with this suspect, and then this will really lead to a kind of potential explosion. So this is happening in our country in real time, and that's why we are having a problem of still a spread of the disease. So we need to here develop a kind of electronic surveillance system or any surveillance system say, irrespective of them. I will not go into the details of this, yeah, but any surveillance system that can target this target 1 here and the target 2, that will help us to track all the leaked cases, yeah, and this will put a check on the spread of the disease. So next, so once we have identified all the leaked suspects, yeah, then what's our next goal should be? So the next goal should be to direct them. So we should help them, or we should track them, and we should guide them to a first point of medical contact to ensure effective testing. So what I mean by effective testing is that once you have know that there is a suspect, you know, or you, then what we have to do, that we have to do a testing at the first point when there is a, like at the entry or the exit point. So this could be like any point, let's say international, when person was coming from abroad, so let's say at the international border, and now in the cases we have a lot of migrant workers migrating from one state to other, so this should be done at the interstate border, yeah. So they should be identified and they should be quarantined, and they should be testing should be done, and then we can also do all the contact tracing, and then we can effectively contain the COVID, because this will be the immediate point where we can isolate them and before they get into the society. And second, what should be done if suppose we don't test them at the point of their entry or the exit, yeah, then if they develop any kind of problem, or if they have any kind of preliminary symptoms, yeah, and if they go to a first point of their medical contact, so testing should be available at first point of medical contact. It should not be like that they went to a hospital or somewhere and then they are redirected to another hospital, yeah, no. So this was these two techniques were adopted, or these two methodologies were adopted in South Korea, and you know the success story, the success outcome. So South Korea was able to contain COVID-19 even without strict lockdown measures. But what is happening, unfortunately, to a large extent, I will say to a large extent in our country, is that we miss these 2 points of the testing, and in many cases we have found that even the testing were not done even at the first point of the medical contact or the second point of medical contact. So one classical case of the Delhi is the good example, where which is known as a patient 10, and she came from Saudi Arabia, and at the international border, so she came into contact with her relatives and she was not tested there, and then the spread of the disease started there, and then she went to the first point of medical contact where also she was not tested, and then during the process the doctor himself get infected, and then she was directed to another hospital where she was tested. So ultimately she was tested, so we achieved the objective of testing. But what kind of things we have achieved during this procedure? So we have achieved that the spread of the disease, so we have already established a chain of the disease. So this kind of testing must be stopped, and we must adopt. I cannot emphasize more on this, yeah, because India is still experiencing increase in the number of cases. So we must modify the way of testing, and we must adopt effective testing methodologies, and this kind of diagnosis is the need of the hour. So once you have tested them, then they may be asymptomatic, or they may be symptomatic. So again, when they are asymptomatic, then it comes to a situation 1, and then here again we will need a comprehensive technology where we can do the complete tracking and tracing. Unless and we'll do the complete tracking and tracing, then we will not be in a situation to control the disease. If we have some leaked cases in each cases, yeah, then it will go on replication. It will be like a chain, yeah. So it will replicate and it will multiply, yeah. So ultimately we have to develop a surveillance system, whatever kind of surveillance system, to put a check on the leakage of the cases. So. And secondly, if the person is symptomatic, then we have to make all kind of treatments that are available at the first point of medical contact. We have to try that. If we don't do this, then again the same problem, yeah. So even if we have to do the testing, and if we don't have the treatment, and if we have to go for another place of treatment, then it will make a chain of the disease. So this has to be avoided now. So now, having said that, yeah, so once you have a treatment and the patient is recovered, yeah, so once the patient is recovered, yeah, then after this we don't have any kind of data so far now. We don't know ahead of this. We have only focused till now on these aspects. Yeah. But now and the government also and the ICMR also suggested to do some kind of antibody testing here to determine the prevalence of the disease. So they are only touching on the one aspect of the disease, but here I would like to add that the testing should be, the scope of the testing should be expanded, and all the patients who have recovered so far, they should be brought under the purview of this testing, antibody testing, and they should be tested over a period of the time to really determine the longevity of the immunity. So how long they are going to be to remain immune against the disease. Now this is the need of the hour, because future challenges are enormous. Yeah, for India, for a country like India, yeah, where we are still facing the first phase of the disease. So what we have to do, antibody testing, and I will recommend those antibody testing which are quantitative. Yeah. So ELISA based antibody testing should be done. So this will have a dual advantage. So first of all, we will come to know about the quantification. So how much antibodies are there, and this is really required to know what kind of immunity is being developed. So this will tell us the quantitative, and also then if we do over a period of the time, then we will know about the qualitative aspect, how long this antibody will be there. Suppose if the antibody is short-lived, yeah, then what will happen here? So then these persons are really vulnerable again to reappearance of the disease, or they may be reinfected. Yeah. And here WHO has bring to the notice of the world twice. Yeah. And I have also published an article way back in April, yeah, 24th April. I have published an article in Hindu Business Line. I have given the reference at the end of my presentation. You can visit them, yeah, where I have mentioned the need of this antibody testing, and to really understand where we are in terms of the longevity of this antibody post-COVID recovery. Yeah. So now is the time we need to emphasize on this, and we need to generate a lot of data here, because mortality part is well addressed. Yeah. And there are something still need to be addressed, which I have mentioned. Yeah. But if we combine this with the antibody testing, yeah, then we will address the problem. So, and during this course, yeah, we will have a lot of data. So we can have a data based on various criteria. Yeah. So these criteria will help us to generate a kind of early warning system. Yeah. For those people, even for those people, suppose there will be enough, I think, number of people who have not been tracked yet, but who could have recovered from the disease. Suppose at a later point of time, some people come to know that they have been recovered, and they want to know about their longevity of the immunity. Then what kind of suggestion we will have for them? What kind of preventive measures we can suggest them? So. And also there will be many cases where there will be no tracking of the recovered people, but still they will be interested in knowing that whether they have been infected in the past, and they should and whether they have some kind of antibodies or not. Yeah. So this will help us to accommodate the maximum possibility of the cases related to COVID, to address the issue of the immunity, the longevity, and based on this data we will have we can develop with the help of artificial intelligence and other technological intervention, a kind of early warning system that is now applied to measure natural disasters like cyclone we have. So we can predict, and we can give early warning. So here also we will develop a system where we can tell a person or we can prescribe him, okay, go for an antibody test and see whether if you have antibody or not. And if the person don't have the antibody, then immediately we can ask him to go into a quarantine or to take more preventive measures than before. Yeah, because he will be susceptible to the to COVID-19 once again. Yeah. So these technological interventions we need now, and for this we need a solid database, and all this data need to be integrated and need to be developed into a technological platform where it could be used for the benefit of every individual who want to know his status in terms of COVID-19. So next. here I would like to list all the current technology which are being under development to address the COVID-19. So this is the compendium of Indian technologies for combating COVID-19. So, and this is done by National Research Development Corporation. It is an enterprise of DSIR, Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India. So this compendium talks about all the technologies, or the technologies need to be invented or need to be innovated for testing, tracing, and treating purpose. So here also we see that we are only addressing some part of the COVID-19. Yeah. So related only to testing. So these are the list of the technologies which are under development, or proposal has been invited to develop this kind of techniques for testing and for tracing. So this will be quite helpful for us, and also for treating. Yeah? So some aspect of the therapy will also be taken care of. So the list is very long. I will not go into the details of it, but here you see that we are trying to cover most part of the maximum part, the maximum aspects of the COVID-19, and trying to innovate or trying to develop a technology which will help us to address the issues which I have listed before. Yeah. So these are the various tests. So here also we are developing some kind of antibody testing methods also. So there are various methods. You can see the list is very long. Yeah. So various methodological, and happy to see that all this is happening. Yeah. So this will help us, and this will, I think, take it will go a long way to help us to combat this COVID-19. But what I found the limitations of this innovations that has been listed, that it's only limited to testing, tracking, and treating. Yeah, it's not addressing the issue of the longevity of the immunity. So what we need to integrate these with the antibody test data also. So what we are going to develop with the antibody testing, yeah. So we can integrate all this with these technologies that are being under development, and we can develop a futuristic and comprehensive technology to evolve the kind of early warning system which I have mentioned here, to meet the future probabilities of re-emergence as outlined here, because this is going to be a big challenge, yeah, in a country like India, yeah. So where we are still facing the first phase, and suppose the person the people or who have recovered, yeah, and they again get reinfected, or the emergence of the bacteria of the virus will be there, yeah. So then our country will be trapped in a vicious cycle. So in one part you will have a re-emergence, in one part still the peak will be going on, and in the another part recovery, yeah. So we have to get out of this vicious cycle, because this really hampers our economic activity and the life of the people, yeah. So here we really need to think out of the box, and we have to address the COVID-19 in totality, yeah, without and zero tolerance to any leakage, to any testing inefficiency, any treatment inefficiency. Everything need to be taken in care of with totality. So here we are trying to develop a comprehensive also technology, yeah, in collaboration with the Climate Resilient Observation System, CROPC, as you know, yeah. And we would also like to collaborate, yeah, with technological partners who are interested to do this, and we can develop also this futuristic app or application or technology to address the COVID-19, and we can help a common man to address his problem of associated with COVID-19. So next, this is not working completely. Yeah. So what is the need of the hour? So the need of the hour is the innovation. So India need to really innovate high quality and sustainable products, because there are a large section of the people who are vulnerable to COVID-19. And this COVID-19 has set up unwanted priority for everybody to protect against this COVID-19. And many sections, especially the poor and the underprivileged section of our society, they don't have enough resources, or they don't have enough economical support to meet this challenge. And here we need to really develop some kind of technology, or like suppose we want to start our economical activity, and the vulnerable section, suppose we want to go out for his activity, then we need to provide some kind of protective equipment to them, yeah, which should be sustainable, which should be affordable, because the poor people cannot afford this, yeah. And if they can't afford this, then they can't go for their work, and if they go for work, then their livelihood is affected, yeah. So in order to have a sustainable economic activities that should go on, yeah, we need to support, and we need to provide the resources to them. And here we need lot of innovations. So this is the best time for India to develop a spirit of innovation. I would say India, a whole India should get up, and India should get involved into a spirit of innovate India. We should innovate not only for us, and but also for others, yeah. So for me, the motivation comes here from the virus itself. See, why virus is mutating? So virus is mutating just to survive, because mutations are, so what the maximum mutations what are happening now is favorable to the virus. It helps the virus to survive. So think, if the virus can mutate for its survival, then why, being a human being, we cannot innovate? We cannot innovate so high quality technologies and other requirement to sustain our life. So this is the motivation that comes from the virus itself, and we should accept it as a challenge, and we should develop a spirit of innovation, and we should innovate. Next, what's I would like to bring to your attention is that the COVID-19, the disease, the course of the disease of COVID-19 is getting very complicated day by day. And what we see now, that COVID-19 is impacting almost all organ in the patient who have been seriously ill or critically ill. The COVID-19 is impacting almost all the organs of the body. So this has really emerged as a puzzle, as well as a big challenge for researchers as well as for clinicians. And here you see that it affects our liver system, immune system. So a kind of autoimmunity disease is being developed in these patients who have been severely affected. And we see a cytokine storm, and our own body the immune system of our own body get altered, and it act against our own body. So this is a very strange situation that we are facing. And our coagulation system is also being damaged. Our respiratory system is also being affected. This is the first thing that happens in COVID-19. Then it leads to what's really big problem now that these days are that it also lead to a problem of neurological disorders. So there were many cases reported in South Korea where people came with altered mental behavior. And surprisingly, they don't have any symptom related to COVID-19, but when they were tested, they were found positive for COVID-19. So COVID-19 is not sparing a single system of our body. It's now affecting the neurons, the brain, and the mental behavior of the people are getting altered. Epilepsy, you have seen so many cases falling, and then they have epileptic attack. Yeah. So these all things are happening. Yeah. So these are the really challenges that we need to address. And then in terms of kidney injury, so gastrointestinal tract, this is also one of the very important things that I would like to bring to your notice, because what's happening here, in many cases we see that only the gastrointestinal tract are being infected, and they don't develop any kind of respiratory symptom. So these patients also are a big challenge, because we may not detect the virus in their sputum, and the virus may be present in their fecal matter. So this is the problem. So here also we need to expand the testing samples. So what samples we include in the testing? So here we should include the sample from the fecal material. And the recent studies, to bring to your notice, I would like to bring that the recent studies have even pointed that urine can also be a potential source of infection. So I'll suggest that these two samples should also be included in the testing, because These two the modes of the transmission, the urine and the fecal material, are not so far included, and this could be one of the reason of the spread of the disease, because this could happen like many healthcare workers or the frontline workers, they may spread the disease by these two means unknowingly, because they will not be there, these samples will not be taken and they will not be diagnosed, and they may be asymptomatic and they may be a carrier of the virus and they will spread the disease. So based on the experiences that we are having, or based on the symptoms that we are having, we should include these two samples also in our testing. And also the cardiovascular injury, as we know. Yeah, so these all things are happening. Yeah, and these patients are also developing sepsis kind of symptom. Yeah, so here we have to think out of the box. So now is the need of the hour is to think out of the box. We cannot apply the same known yardstick even in for the treatment purpose. So what's known or whatever medical interventions that we have is not sufficient to for the treatment of COVID-19. So here we have to think out of the box and to find a solution for COVID-19. Yeah. So only one aspect I will today talk about. There are many aspects we can talk, but one important aspect, because now it's emerging, that what's the role of the bacteria of in our body in COVID-19. Yeah. So now many research are coming up that the coronavirus may also get interact with the bacteria, and also activate the bacteria and engage the bacteria in our body, and it lead to progression of the symptoms. Yeah. So that's why in some cases the treatment against the bacterial infection is very well responded, and in some is not responded. So here is a big puzzle for me. Yeah, and here I would like to add a hypothesis. This is just a hypothesis which need to be investigated, by well-equipped lab or the designated lab which have the all resources to do COVID-19 research. So what we should look beyond is that we should also now try to find out whether this COVID-19 involves the integration. I want to say the integration. It's not the activation or in the involvement, but it could happen the virus itself integrate with the bacteria present in our body, and it may develop into a bacteriophage. And during this process, what it could happen that it escapes both the treatment of bacterial therapy and as well as the viral therapy. Yeah. So all the symptomatic treatments that you give to these patients is not working. And the situation, and in some cases, it's happening that we are getting the adverse result based on the symptomatic treatment. So here we really need to think out of the box that this could happen here. And what I found in the recent publication, just published 2-3 years back, yeah, and it's reported that there are many bacteriophages which can cause severe human diseases. It has been now reported. So here we have to think that is this kind of phenomenon is happening. If it is happening, then we have to devise a therapy based on the emergence of this situation. Yeah. So we need to think out of the box, and we need to support such kind of research to find a successful therapy of the COVID-19. So now the question arises how we can integrate all these data science, technological interventions, and all the medical interventions that is required for COVID-19. Because now we are having multiplicity of the institutions, multiplicity of the government agencies, yeah, that is addressing the COVID problem, and some data, some valuable data are not being shared with the agencies or with the right, and it's not available at the right platform. So what I have proposed and got a published article just 2 days back, yeah, that I have proposed the integration of all the existing institutions, and we should form a medical commission, or say medical commission or health commission, whatever you call it. Yeah, it should be a hybrid institution. Yeah, peacetime work should be different, and in the times of pandemic it should be different. So it should be an institution like an election commission of the India, and it should be manned by scientists and the public health experts. Yeah? And the important objective, it should be that it should devise the unified policy, health policy of our country. And during the time of pandemic or any biological disaster, it should work as central control and command center. because this is what we are lacking now. Yeah, we don't have a unified command, and there is a multiplicity of the instructions or of the preventive measures that's coming out. Yeah, and this lead to some kind of exclusion as well as some kind of confusion. So, and the next important objective of such body should be to do a comprehensive research to predict what I mean by prediction. Yeah, so now based on the experiences that we have in the COVID-19, yeah, so the virus, the novel coronavirus, way back in 2005, it was being warned in China that there are many viruses present in the ancient caves in the Hunan province, and these viruses belong to coronavirus family, and they have a potential to infect human beings. They were warned way back in 2005, but nobody paid attention to this, and probably because of that we are paying a heavy price today. Yeah? So we should develop a body which can do comprehensive research based on the findings all over the world, not only in India, all over the world, and it should predict the possibility and suggest ways to mitigate such a problem if that happen in future, and also to build our healthcare capability effectively to deal with the future pandemics, because we know the current pandemic, what the situation of our healthcare system, and to suggest reforms in all the concerned institutions to enable them to efficiently meet the objective during our pandemic. Yeah, so here also we are lacking something, so this kind of body will help us then to create a second line of defense in times of pandemic. So what's the first line of defense is our treating doctors and the healthcare professionals, but now they are getting exhausted, and you have seen in many advanced countries like Italy and USA, the healthcare system collapsed, and you know, we cannot produce doctors and all this healthcare professionals overnight. So we need to develop a second line of defense, and here also I have published an article, and I'm thankful to NIDM that they have adopted this article as a research reference in to address COVID-19. So, and this kind of second line defense can be developed by using the resources that is present in our country, and these resources are all the scientific professionals, the researchers, the PhD, the postgrads, and even the veterinarians. They can be engaged into this process, and we could develop a support system for the front line of defense. Then this commission should also work in synchronization with all the disaster management authorities, because this is a biological disaster. Yeah, and so far we don't have a specially trained unit to deal with a biological disaster, or let's say a kind of biological warfare. Yeah, because this is something like all over the world it's happening. Country is in a war mode. Yeah, so when we have this kind of problem, then the expertise that the institution will help the disaster management authorities to deal more effective. Because now, just yesterday, we came to know that all the persons that were involved in the rescue of Amphan, more than 50, they have been tested COVID positive. So this itself warrants the need that we need such kind of body where we should, and this could have been prevented if proper preventive measures could have been taken. Yeah. So something is not complete, or something we need to supplement the biological expertise or the knowledge to help them to not without getting infected, and to implement the rescue measures more effectively. If we have the disaster management personnel themselves getting infected, then you can understand what will be the situation when the pandemic will rise. So we will have no personnel to meet the rescue operation. So here we need some kind of expertise so that these vulnerable person can be prevented. And also further, all the institutions that are related to our public health, like NCDC, ICMR, all the medical colleges and all the research institutions, they should be integrated in times of pandemic. Yeah. So that all the data flow and all the scientific interventions will go well along the institutions, and we will have a unified command system, and the guidelines that will be generated will be very, very useful, yeah, because it will be based on the integration. We will not have one guideline from one institution, a second guideline from another institution. To open a lockdown, we will not have guidelines from government agency. So all will be unified, and then we will have a very good guideline. So this will avoid the multiplicity of the various guidelines that we are having now, yeah, creating a lot of confusion and other problems. And this will help to manage our crisis more economically, because we are spending a lot of money, and there are a lot of overlaps. If you see, there are a lot of overlaps, and this costs money. And when we have a unified command, then all these overlaps can be avoided. So then we will be in a situation to more efficiently and more effectively deal the pandemic-like situation, and it will really ensure better public safety and a better satisfaction level of our people. And also, it will establish a better coordination between the center and the state government agency, because in the current situation, we found there are many lackings in the coordination between the center and the state institutions. So some guidelines were issued by central agencies which were not being followed strictly by the state agencies. So this lead to some kind of inefficient dealing with the problem, and ultimately it lead to a situation where the disease is not being prevented, but somehow it's even rising now. So we need to address these issues, and to address this, we need to now think and we need to build a really hybrid and futuristic institution like. So these are some of the recommendations that I would like to present, and this is the article that is being published. COVID-19, India should set up medical commission on the lines of EC, Election Commission. So you will find this article here, and these are all the list of the published articles that I have so far. So first is the India need to assess COVID-19 virus prevalence, herd immunity. So this was on 24th April, yeah. And then the very next day, the WHO came out and speak about this aspect of the COVID-19, the immunity aspect. And the second article was that India need to develop second line of defense, because we are now facing a shortage of healthcare problems. And this article, thankfully, adopted by NIDM as a research reference paper. And the third article, which is just published yesterday, is 2 days back, is the which I have just mentioned now. Yeah. So finally, with this, I would like to conclude that, yeah, what we need is that to have a comprehensive data on both aspects of mortality and immunity of COVID-19. And this data sharing should be encouraged at all levels and in the most transparent manner. Because if data sharing is not complete and transparent, then we will not be able to develop a technological platform that will be really helpful to address the problem. So these things must be taken care of. And this will lead to develop or innovate the right technological intervention to address COVID-19 in a scientific manner. And when you adopt the most scientific ways, then there are least error of judgments in preventive and control measures. And this will ensure our maximum public safety and satisfaction. So with this, I will leave you with some of the myth busters that I have adopted from the WHO slide. So many people have so many doubts and so many confusion about the technological means that we have that are being used now. So the first one, many people ask that what's the thermal scanner do actually. So thermal scanner does not scan or detect COVID-19. It's just a scanning of your temperature. So don't think that if you are thermal scanned, then you have been diagnosed. Any kind of testing has been done. No, it's not a testing. Yeah. Secondly, the most important doubt many people have that about the 5G mobile network. Yeah. So far, there has been no correlation established between mobile network and the COVID-19. So we are not in a situation to say that 5G network in any way is going to affect COVID-19 or the spread of coronavirus. Thirdly, so what's the impact? What kind of drugs is available for COVID-19? So currently, there is no drug license for the treatment or prevention of COVID-19. Whatever drug is now being repurposed. So many drugs are still under clinical trial, and 1 or 2 drug is in the stage of approval. Yeah. So don't take any self-medication. This is the advice. So this may, because we have seen the complication of the symptoms here. So don't take any medical self-medication. This will lead to a problem, aggravation of the problem rather than solving your problem. Even if you are healthcare professionals, be cautious. Don't take unless and until you develop a symptom. Yeah, with the advice, only with the advice of doctor. And the last one which I would like to bring out, that there are many means available for disinfecting. So one of them is the UV rays. So please avoid UV lamp for your hands to disinfect your hand or skin. This is known to cause skin cancers. Yeah, so avoid as much as possible to use UV lamp unless and until it is absolutely necessary, and ensure that your hand and your skin is not exposed to this UV light. This is really a health hazard which must be taken care of unknowingly, because this is new to our life, on day-to-day life, and at many places it has been now introduced to as a disinfectant measure. So at the same time, we must be aware of all the health hazard associated with all kind of disinfectants that are being used, and we should take maximum precaution to avoid the long-term health hazard associated with all this kind of disinfect. Even with the ethanol-based disinfectant. Yeah, so aerosol should not be inhaled, because the inhalation of aerosol leads to health hazard in the long run. So this also should be avoided. With this, I would like to thank you very much for your kind attention, and I will be ready and happy to take all your questions regarding my talk, or in general regarding COVID-19. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Thapa.